And we are live. Welcome to another episode of J&T in the Evening. This is Joe Scola and Tori. We are tuning into you at 9 o'clock at night tonight. And Tori and I actually had podcasts going on probably, about a year ago, Tori? I have no
It's been a
idea. It's
while.
been
Yeah,
a
it's been a
long
while.
time.
Probably about. I think the last one was at least a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a year. But yeah, we've come a long way since we had our podcast, because before I believe they were just sound recordings, but now we've got high tech software now called Google Hangouts. So absolutely not.
Can you see me?
And yeah, so can I see you? Yeah. Oh, you're coming in really dark though.
Yeah.
Your background. You look like, you know who you really look like? You look like that guy from Power Rangers, the floating head.
I can see it. Yeah. The lighting in my house is not the best, so I'll just be a floating.
Where are you?
My head also looks gigantic as well. It looks like a melon for some reason.
You look, dude, your head does not look big next to my head. I have like the world's biggest head. I should be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
He's got a big brain, bro.
No, dude, it's just skull. I swear to God, dude, if I headbutted a wall, I'd probably do some serious damage. That's actually the secret to enlightenment right there. You just slam your head into a wall enough, you just hit it just right. You know, you start to see some lights, and, maybe hear some voices, and that's it. You had your Hakari, I forget what it's called. It's Haka something moment. It's a moment of awakening slash. It's like a big epiphany. I forget exactly the terminology. I'll have to look in that book.
I think it's
Before
called a
Alan Bach.
concussion.
What is it called? A
It's called a
concussion.
concussion.
Ah, dude, that must be a synonym for it. All right, so Tori, why now do you think that the podcast that we're gonna have is more powerful, and why do you think? All right, why do you think the podcast that we're having now is gonna be better than ever since the last time we did it?
Well, we definitely stepped up the technology because I remember when we'd have the calls, the voice wasn't coming in too clear. We didn't have video, so it's cool
Yeah.
with video now.
Yeah, honestly, it's really just gonna be everybody looking at my gigantic head and not seeing your face because you're in the darkness.
It's all gonna be improved, so should be good.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Why
you
do
can't see me at all, or is it?
I can, you look like a scientific anomaly.
Hey, we'll go with it for tonight. It's all good.
Yeah, dude. We'll make it better. We'll make it better. Episode 1, folks. Here we go. We're already like 20 minutes in, talking about nothing. So Tori recently went into a self-deprivation tank. And I'll never forget it because he was like, dude, this thing is like trippy. I've like read a bunch of feedback from people doing the self-deprivation tank. And for everybody that's listening to this, whoever doesn't know what a self-deprivation tank is, it's ultimately just a gigantic bathtub that you sit in. Actually, you lay in, and the water is at a temperature that roughly matches your body temperature, so that when you lay in it long enough, it just you can't even tell that you're laying in water. And I forget exactly the name of the salt, but it's like super saturated with salt.
Epsom salt.
Epsom salt, that's what it is. And you lay in it, and because of the salt, you float. So you're kind of just in this chamber where you're kind of just floating on the water, and you're given earplugs, and it's completely dark, and you're kind of just in there, And yeah, Tori, why don't you tell us a little bit about what some people experience when you're in this self
Well,
deprivation? Why do you think people should do it, or why
so
why did you want to do it initially?
I first heard about it on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was kind of talking it up, and I was like, let me do a little bit of research and kind of figure out what this thing's all about. So I actually found a place a couple towns over. It's called Crystalline Awakening. Gave them a call. I made an appointment. I actually went last week, and
Nice.
I can't say I had expectations because everybody's different. From what I read, people had different experiences. So I went there. I met a couple very nice ladies, um, one of which was the instructor of the day to kind of walk me through the steps. And they give you a couple different hand positions that you can use. One is you can lay with your legs open, with your palms up, kind of extended towards the opposite direction. And then there's another position which you can have your hands face down, palms face down next to you. So I went in, I was led into the other room. The tank itself is probably, I'd say, at least 7 feet lengthwise. Widthwise, I'd say it's probably maybe 5 feet, 4 or 5 feet, and the depth of it is probably at least 3. So the lights are off in the room. There's like a shower. And then when you open this thing up, I mean, it's pitch black. You can't see anything. Obviously, the whole idea behind it is to, you know, numb your senses so that you don't experience any type of stimuli from the outside, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yep.
So actually, the name of the tank was Samadhi, and that's
Samadhi.
actually a term. You can find it in many different traditions, but in Buddhism, essentially what that term means is no self, or absorbing yourself into the void, essentially is what that term means. So what you're really doing is you're going in, all your senses are pretty much gone, or that's what it's supposed to be like. So I went into this thing. You can go in naked. You can go in with a bathing suit. I chose to go
I
in
would
with a
have
bathing
absolutely done it naked.
suit.
But
And the
birthday
Epsom,
suit all the way.
the Epsom salt, it prevents any type of bacteria and all that kind of stuff. So you don't have to worry about coming down with some sexually transmitted infection from laying in this water that other people have laid in. So you go in and immediately, you float without putting any effort into it. So I started with my arms back. I ended up getting kind of uncomfortable. I was banging into the sides because you kind of float around a little bit until you find your good position. It's completely pitch black. I had earplugs on, and my head was submerged kind of underneath. And I actually found it a little bit distracting because I could hear my breathing, and the breathing was so loud it was almost like a gust of wind every time I took a breath. And it kind of had a stench, like there was definitely a smell in there. I think it was the Epsom salt, I'm going to guess. Um, so I finally got relaxed, but and I stopped bumping into the sides, but I was a little uncomfortable and a little distracted with the breathing. Um, so I got to a point where I kind of got deep in meditation at some points, but most of it was kind of like me waiting, wanting my hour to kind of be finished up so I could get out of there, to be completely honest. Nothing great happened, nothing transformative happened. I mean, it was relaxing to the point where I was able to focus on certain points in my body that I found some tension, which I found interesting because I thought I was super relaxed in there, like I'm just floating, but I could actually feel tension in certain parts of my body. So I released those points of tension, and then what happened is an hour in, the woman came, knocked on the outside of the tank. I came out. I felt really light. I felt really relaxed. So that was really nice. took a shower, cleaned off the Epsom salt, and I was out of there at that point. So, I mean, I've had better, deeper, more transformative experiences through meditating, but I was glad I was glad I went through it. I was glad I experienced it. It was a little bit expensive. It's $60 for an hour. And most people say that if you go in the first time, you're not going to have like a really super transformative experience. But if you go in, maybe it's like anything, you know, it's like meditating the first time. I mean, I've taught people meditation. They couldn't get into a deep state. But it's like anything, the more you practice, the better you get at it, the more relaxed you get. So would I do it again? Probably not, just because it was super expensive and I've had better experiences meditating. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I tried it out, because now at least I can know for myself that what it's all about.
Gotcha, dude. Well, it sounded like you wanted to get out of that thing because you were getting high off of salt.
The other thing too is the air was actually like really thick, and it was warm, and it was kind of like the breathing. My ability to breathe in there was it wasn't the best conditions for like getting a good airflow, because it was pretty dry. My throat was kind of getting dry, so there was a lot of things that were actually distracting me where it actually is supposed to not do that. So. But hey, now I know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And who knows? Maybe that one just sucked.
And and I'm not knocking it. It just, I mean, for me, it wasn't what I would consider doing again. But everybody's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And those of you who are obese, sorry, probably not for you. And
well, I'd say if you're, I mean, I'm 5'10", and it didn't take me stretching out too much to hit the side. So if you're probably over 5 feet, you might want to have the position where your hands are face down on the sides of your body, because that might be a little bit better in terms of not whacking on the sides.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I was doing a little research, and I read of this girl that went into the tank, and the little voice in her head that tells her all this stuff like, oh, you suck, or you can't really, but basically the limiting voice, the voice that we all have up there that holds us back from doing anything. Basically that thing came out in like a demon form, so she tripped.
Yeah.
So
that happened.
Yeah. No, Tori was just getting frustrated that he was bumping into the side. No, that's really cool that like you actually ended up doing that though. Like.
Yeah, I mean.
I don't know.
Something different. Good experience. Now I know for myself. Instead of reading about it, I went in and actually tried it out.
Yeah, exactly. Tori, do you have anything that you've been learning about that you wanna talk about tonight?
In particular, well, I think we wanted to touch on, I guess, awakening. And how does somebody truly know they're awakened? It's kind of, it's a subject, because for somebody to say that they're enlightened, or hey, I can hear myself coming through your speakers.
Can you? Let me turn you down.
Yeah, turn it down just a little bit.
Right better.
Yeah, it's better now, I think. No, I can still hear it. It's coming through pretty bad.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. It wasn't really doing that before, though.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Well,
all right.
I could fix it.
So I think it's difficult, and I think anybody that says they're enlightened or they're awakened. Well, how I guess how do you really truly know that? How can you gauge that? I wouldn't say myself I'm enlightened or I'm awakened. I guess other people could say that for me, but
Would you say that you've come down from that heavens, quote unquote? Would you say that you're like an immortal among mortals?
no, I would not say something like that.
So okay. So as
I mean,
far as
taking a humble stance on the subject, I'd say, you know, I'm awakening. I mean, I think when somebody says they're enlightened, you've kind of hit the end point, or you say you've hit gnosis, or you've hit an awakened state. I mean, that's fine. I mean, I personally wouldn't, I'd like to take a more humble approach and say I'm awakening. I mean, I try to look at all sides of things. I try to not look at things from a dual perspective of just looking at the world from opposites. You're over there, I'm over here. There's Democrats, there's Republicans, there's Muslims, there's Christians, there's black, there's white. I try to look at everything as a whole rather than, this separate universe. And I think people that come at their perspective looking at things that way, they're probably a little less awakened, if you want to use that word, than say somebody that can take more of a holistic approach to things, or not a holistic approach, but a looking at things as a whole instead of looking at a oneness or a fullness of things rather than everything separated and everything different. I mean, there certainly are differences, but I try to look at the similarities in life, and knowing that myself wouldn't be myself if it wasn't for everything else. I mean, all my experiences that I've had. In order to truly understand life, there has to be, you can't accept everything that is quote unquote positive or good. If you look at things that way, there's always the opposite. There's always that other side of the coin, which, isn't necessarily the opposite. It's just a differing view on the same subject, which makes it whole, if that makes any sense at all.
yeah, absolutely. Because there's always two sides. There's always two sides. I remember I heard you talking about that like back in the day, and I was like, okay, duality. But now I've kind of experienced it a little bit more, and really like I've been kind of like looking for the duality and everything, and there really is duality in everything. You've got pros and cons. You've got masculine and feminine. You've got the good and the bad, and you don't even necessarily have to label it. You can just kind of see it as its opposite, And just a
Well,
quick hint. What's that?
well, what I'm saying is, I'm saying to eliminate the duality, actually. I'm saying that most people come at life from that perspective of looking at the opposites. But what I'm saying is, in order to truly know light, for example, you would have to experience the darkness in order to understand the light, or you'd have to, in order to know something is hard, you would have to have the opposite of soft to be able to understand the difference between the two things. So essentially, instead of there being this perspective of looking at something dualistically, you actually you come at it from a stance of wholeness, knowing that without one, you truly wouldn't understand the other. The reason why, you know,
So are you
you
saying
have
that? So you saying that you don't want two sides? You don't want to pick one side over the other. You want to be able to see it for.
it's not even necessarily picking sides. It's just looking at the wholeness. I think because people do choose sides. Once you come at life and you say, I'm a Christian, and you hold on to your Christian values, which is perfectly fine. I have no issue with that. But as soon as you close yourself off and you say something and you hold on to that idea, then you're closing your mind off to any other ideas, and that's where the separation comes in. Like, I don't even like to call myself Italian or, a Democrat,
Or
Republican,
stallion.
all that kind of stuff, because I feel like when you do that, you cause a divide from everything else. You cause yourself to separate from everything else, even though
Yeah,
within,
definitely.
within the spectrum, certainly, there's definitely, you look out there and you see differences, but our essence is all the same. We all come from the same point. We all come from the same, we're made up of the same ingredients. We're all made of the same atoms. We've just taken on different forms if you want to get to the deepness of it all. I mean, the essence
Definitely.
of who we are is essentially the same. We're just varying in combinations of what we're made up of. And that's where the separation comes in. It's just like thinking about the waves in the ocean, right? Is the ocean separate from the waves, or are the waves separate from the ocean? Neither of those analogies is true. There's a wholeness there. There's only the illusion of the separation, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as my own experience with feeling that sense of oneness, it's truly probably one of the most ecstatic feelings that I've felt. I mean, sex is fucking amazing too, but really feeling that oneness with everything, being able to snap yourself into that, I think, is one of the ultimate joys of life. And looking at the mystery of everything, being able to truly feel that sense of oneness with everything, I truly believe that in order to feel it at its deepest, most impactful level, you truly do have to love everything in an unconditional sense. Everybody, when you look around, instead of looking at people for, because your ego, you're going to have the egoic filter. You're going to look for flaws in people. You can argue all day why people look for flaws, whether we're taught that, whether we've evolved that because we're a tribal species. Who knows? I mean, we could theorize all day. Point is, we have that, and to go beyond that, and to really go past that egoic filter and really return to that essence of who we are, it's unbelievable. It's really is one of the best feelings when you can, dude. Like, I remember when I really had my first awakening, I would look around, and not only would I be just could I look at somebody and feel such a connection with a total stranger, because they didn't feel like a stranger. The ego didn't label that person stranger, because I was past that.
Yep.
If you want to say that, I don't believe that there's I think the awakening is your first step outside. It's like I almost want to argue that when you're a child, you're awakened, but then as shit gets thrown onto you, you get all this mental, all this mental activity that's just constantly going on in your mind, and being able to clean all of that out so that you don't have all of this mind activity, so you can really just sit in the state of absolute presence and just observe the stillness and the essence of everything. And where I was going with this is, I really think awakening is pulling yourself up out of a river for the first time. It's like you're getting breath. But I don't think you just stay like that. You're gonna get tired, or things will, even like that awakening, it'll get I almost want to say boring. I don't want to say boring, but you'll fall back under. It's gonna happen. And maybe not completely, but maybe that the breathtaking view of of that awakening subsides just a little bit, and it's not as intense. Uh, I know Eckhart Tolle says that when he, after a while, after he like had that awakening moment, that's what happened to him. What happens to I think a lot of people is they get pulled back under, and then they have to snap themselves back out. I remember Jim Carrey actually talking about that, and I just want to say that if you can look at anything, it really can be anything. Look at something with no labeling, no voice in the head, just looking at something with curiosity and
Mm-hmm.
just a loving acceptance until you just keep staring at it, even if it takes a few minutes. And don't be wanting anything. Just look at it. And don't have an agenda either. Don't say, oh, what time is it? Just take it in. And eventually, it's going to be the only thing for a second that exists. And this is, I'm not even going to lie, this is kind of like hard to describe because it really has to happen to you. And those of you that have this has happened to, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because you'll start to feel this understanding. And you'll start to be filled up with this like sense of bliss. And like that there's like a greater, almost like purpose. And all of a sudden, it's almost like you're seeing a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
You're like stepping out of the human experience for a second, and you're looking at the like unbelievable beauty of just creation itself, everything. Like, I know I sound like I'm on acid right now, but like even this, whatever this is, right? Like you like look at this and you're like, okay, this could be a sock, whatever this is, but then you look at it and you're like, this. Why does this exist? Like, why is there something and not nothing? Like, I find it funny that people will, when people say, "Is there a God?" I'm not gonna say that there's a man up in the sky, but the fact that like we, being as complex as we are, like if you just look up at the sky at night, or if you just look around for like 5 seconds, how can there not have been something that created all of this? Whether it's not, I'm sorry, all of you Catholics out there who believe that there's a man up in the sky that said let there be light. I don't think that's how it went down. I think there is a creator, and I'm not saying that everybody thinks that there's like this old man up in the sky that made all this, but there's definitely a God, that a creative source that made all of this, because it's just too big and too complex for it to it just happened that there's just all these like species, all these planets and stars and moons. It's just too much for it just happened. To me, that doesn't make any sense. And we could talk about this forever. So I will leave it at that. And I guess
I like your I like the analogy that you used earlier about the kind of like you come out of the water. I like that analogy because that makes sense because I feel like life is just too vast. You're gonna have too many experiences. I mean, you can certainly be in an awakened state, um, in a state of gnosis, whatever whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to categorize it, enlightenment, whatever it is. But I like putting the ing at the end of it. You're awakening, you're enlightening. Um, I don't want to put an end to it because certainly circumstances can come up. We're all human beings. Things can happen. You can get put back down into that water, as you stated, and we all have those moments where we're imperfect, and it's bound to happen because we're human beings, or we're too much up in our heads, or we're thinking too much, or we're overanalyzing things, and can certainly happen to anybody. I think when you reach that state, it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing feeling. You attach to everything, as you stated. There's a oneness, there's a wholeness. You're in the moment instead of like most of society, constantly worrying about the future, worrying about the past. You're never really present ever for most people. Um, so I think, yeah, I really liked the way that you put that because that definitely
Thanks, man.
makes a lot of sense. And I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people because we can, you know, everything's a flux. Everything's constantly cycling. You know, you're coming back to the, you know, certain states, and then you're kind of growing out of those states, and you know, everything happens in cycles. The seasons change, the tides come in and out, whatever you want to say. Um,
Yeah.
and everything, you know, and I think that happens with consciousness. I think it happens with just growing up and going through experiences and learning and growing, and that's why they call it growing. You know, you learn from your experiences, and
Yep.
definitely, man.
Definitely. And I guess what I want to leave people with today, for all of you that suffered through our long-winded explanations of our perceptions of all of this, um, I know, I'm sure any close friends of mine that are watching this, I harp on meditation all the time, um, but I really do think that it's the easiest way to experience that feeling. And you don't have to meditate. You really don't. The way I look at it is it's a necessity that's not necessary. Um, but dude, it's like you're happier, you think clearer, you're more relaxed, you're you're like because of the stress release when you meditate, everything in your body, your heart, your organs work better. You probably have better posture if you're doing uh, what's that meditation called, Tori? The one when you sit up like this, chest out, you're in good posture. I forget the name of that one. Transcendental. I think it's
Repose.
transcendental.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Shit, I think
that's a yeah.
oh
I
yeah,
call it tree pose.
yeah,
Even if you just stay, you know, even if you just stay meditative throughout the day, you try to stay present in everything that you're doing.
yeah.
Because everybody thinks of meditation as like, you know, you have your eyes closed and you're in a certain position, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. You can just be meditative throughout the entire day, you know, and while you're eating lunch, you're present eating lunch. While you're walking down the street, you're present walking. While you're breathing,
Yes,
you're
and
focusing on
yeah,
your breath.
absolutely, dude. And
It
I
doesn't
actually
have to
will do that,
be, it doesn't always have to be with your eyes closed, you know?
dude.
Also, we haven't really posted a lot on our Facebook page, but we're gonna try to start doing that a little bit more. It's called The Universe and Spirituality, the Bigger Picture. So if you're on Facebook, check it out. We're gonna start putting some more content on there, and maybe we'll have other
Hell
people
yeah.
join the calls and call in, and we can maybe get this thing up and running again because it's been about a year and a half since we've really done anything with this.
Yeah, and you did you say you've got a blog coming out, Tori?
What's up?
Did you say that you had a blog coming out? Maybe I misheard you.
No, no, no. I said I just pitched the Facebook page and I said we'll start posting some more stuff on there.
Okay, cool, nice. Um, and just to finish up with what Tori was saying, um, I am super guilty of being present when I'm meditating, but then I actually have fallen into a habit of just it being okay to think after I meditate. It's like I'm only present for like 20 minutes, and then I've like justified my presence for the day, but it's not like that. Tori's absolutely right. Try to bring as much presence as you can. Thinking's addicting, and for those of you that think you can stop thinking, you're full of shit. Um, there's a difference between thinking and brain activity. Brain activity is no bueno. You have no control over that. Consciously thinking is the stuff that you want to be doing. Like if you're doing math, you're consciously crunching numbers, or if you're visualizing, that's conscious. Most people don't like to think. This is why a lot of people just watch endless TV shows, and this is why people come back from work and they just turn on the boob tube. They don't want to think. There's no thought in that. Um, but yeah, just a few helpful hints that I'm gonna steal from Tori. When you're eating, think about all the stuff that went into what brought that food there, and think about like all the other places that don't have that, and just consciously enjoy your food. Uh, Same thing when you're drinking water. A lot of third world countries don't have clean water. Even when you're showering, just being present as much as you can during the day, definitely a boss practice, and it'll change your life for sure. And meditation is just a extended version of that, where you dedicate an X amount of time to just sit and kind of observe the thoughts that pop up through your brain activity, thoughts that surface, and to feel into your body, feel maybe where there's tension or emotional blockages. You can actually feel that by sometimes it's actually a tension in your shoulders. That happens a lot. More recently with me, it's actually been in my throat, which is really funny because I'm like always the loudest dude, but I've actually just with the job that I have right now, it's very introverted, and I feel like I'm more quiet at my job, and I've actually had like almost like a built up energy in my throat where it actually feels like I can't actually talk that much. It's really interesting. I'm constantly learning about this type of stuff and chakras and whatnot, and it's just crazy. Right when you think you know it all, you don't. So we'll leave it at that, and I hope some of the stuff that we talked about was helpful. Stay tuned because we'll definitely be coming up with more. And Tori's definitely going to grab some reins of the Facebook page. He's got a ton of awesome stuff that he's been learning about that we didn't even touch on today. So he'll definitely be posting some stuff on Facebook. And yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this. And stay tuned for more. Tori, any parting words, good sir?
Be well and love one another. That's about it.
Peace and love, my friends. Yeah. Awesome.